Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Following from our series of lectures on reformation, al-islah, and to how we can change ourselves in this holy month of Ramadan and holy month of Muharram, I have chosen the topic today of balance in life. How can I balance my life as a Muslim in the West? So what I want you to do is imagine that you are this individual that every day, except the weekends, you are quite busy during the days. So you have work from around 9:30 to 5:30 perhaps. You come back home around 6:30 to 7 if you don't have work, maybe university or studying. And you spend 1 hour either with the family, and if you're a parent, you spend it with the kids, etc. And then you might have dinner, then you go and pray, and then you watch some TV, and then you're very tired, and it's time for bed. So you don't really have much to do in terms of spirituality or in terms of anything else in that matter. Life, a lot of people say, is very hectic. It's extremely busy. I can't really scratch my head. I don't have time to scratch my head. So there are certain statements that one might associate themselves with. You say, I feel empty inside. Spiritually, I don't really have the energy to gain some spirituality. I'm so busy. I don't have time to do these things. And you might ask a question, how can I achieve a balance in this very hectic life, very busy life? If you're a parent, if you're a family man, you say, I have so much pressure in providing for my family. There's so much pressure for me financially to provide for my family that I don't really have time for spirituality. I don't have time for anything else in my life. And if you have kids, you say, my life seems to revolve around my kids. Anyone who is a parent and has kids, especially young kids, you keep on thinking about them. If they are ill, you've got to feed them, you've got to make sure they go to school on time, etc. So everything seems to revolve around kids. And if you're at university or a college or whatever, you say, my studies are so intense. If I'm studying a degree that includes quite intense studying, you say, I am sort of really into my studies and I don't really have time for my spirituality. I barely have time to pray, and I just pray and that's it, and hardly I have anything else to do. So if you are someone who seems like a stressed person, you are tired and you feel there is some emptiness inside you, and you feel that there is no connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then perhaps these are all reminders that your life is imbalanced. And you are not living up to your true values. So what we need to do is we need to design our life. If we do not design our life, someone else will design our life for us. And what I mean by someone else is either the company you work with, right, or your company you work for will probably design your life for you, right? If it's a university, your university will design your life for you. If you are not conscious of time, you're not conscious of the management of your life, of your daily life, then other people will actually take advantage of that and they will design your life for you. So we've got to be conscious that we need to design our life. So, balance, we know, makes us better people. It makes us better Muslims. It makes us better parents. It makes us better youths. It makes us better partners. So the ultimate question that we're going to answer today, inshallah, is how can we achieve a balance between life and the hereafter? Because our ultimate goal is to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, surely. But we are consumed so much with our worldly matters, gaining so much, trying to get so much, working for this life, and forgetting the hereafter. So inshallah, in the next few minutes or so, inshallah, we'll try to come up with a plan a plan into how we can balance our life. And very importantly, what I like to stress, inshallah, in the talk, is how can I balance my life so that I can also serve the community, and so therefore I can give my time for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not just always me and my family. Me and my family are important, right? I need to take care of my family. But there are others. There are people who are deprived. There are youths who are lost, right? There are people who need help. They need your help. So it's very important not to be so-called selfish and try to think about others and plan around others as well. So let's go back to this particular verse that I mentioned. وَابْتَغِي فِيمَا آتَاكَ اللَّهُ الدَّارَ الْآخِرَةِ. It's in chapter 28, verse 77. There are 4 lessons we can take from this particular verse. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says at the start, and seek by means of Allah has given you the abode of the hereafter. Now, the wealth and property that you may possess, you may have, it's not really a bad thing. Some people say that, people who have wealth and have properties and everything, they're sort of too much in this worldly life. That's not particularly a bad thing, no. But it's very important that this person, if you are someone who owns property and has a bit of wealth, that you use this wealth responsibly. And what I mean by responsibly is that you spend your money wisely. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say in Surah Al-Isra, verse 29? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَلَا تَجْعَلْ يَدَكَ مَغْلُولَةً إِلَىٰ عُنُقِكَ وَلَا تَبْسُطْهَا كُلَّ الْبَسْطِ فَتَقْعُدَ مَلُومًا مَحْسُورًا. He says that, and do not make your hand to be shackled to your neck. So don't be basically stingy. When people are stingy, they don't really give much, right? Give much to charity, give much to their family, in fact. They want to always keep their balance high. They don't want to spend, right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, also nor stretch it forth to the utmost limit of its stretching forth, right? So don't stretch it too much. So don't spend your money on everything that you can see, right? And we're going to, inshallah, talk about, one of the nights, about exaggerated dowries and wedding receptions. And I find these days that people who want to get married, the mahar, the reception, the dowries is they splash out on the dowry. This is of course not against the teachings of Islam. So we'll talk about that inshallah. So it's very important in that particular aspect that yes, you use your money wisely. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then goes and says, do not forget your portion in this world. Every single one of us has been assigned a portion of this world. Okay? You've got a portion of this world. There's a good and a bad thing about this, that you have been assigned a portion, so well done for that. The bad point is that you have only been assigned a portion. So do not do excess in certain things. So do not spend too much on food. Do not spend too much on clothing. Do not have excess houses and cars. Certain people have several cars. Why don't you just have one car? No, I like to have several cars, right? So spend your money too much. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says that you have a portion of this world. Imam Ali alayhi salam says in Nahj al-Balagha, saying 192, he says, O son of Adam, whatever you earn beyond your basic needs, you will only keep vigil over it for others. Number 3, the third lesson is that, and be good to others just as Allah has been good to you. In that particular verse, saying, of course you can spend your money wisely, you have a certain portion of this world, but also be good to others. That means actually use that money to give to others as well. Don't forget the others and remember the others. And also we will touch upon this later on about community work, about giving to charity, inshallah. And certain people might, for general working for community and striving for the community, certain people might say that, I'm always sending WhatsApp messages of Jum'ah Mubarak, for example, happy Friday morning, and may God bless you, or keep on forwarding these WhatsApp messages that it is my duty to the community, I need to do that. You might be someone who enjoys doing that, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you if your intentions is right. but that's not really enough. Forwarding WhatsApp messages, forwarding WhatsApp videos, issues on Facebook, etc. is not community work. That is not community work. This is just a luxury, I will say. And inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give us the reward. It depends on our intentions. The fourth lesson is, and do not seek to make mischief in the land. Verily, Allah does not love the mischief makers. And importantly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here says that there are individuals who are so wealthy, at the end, what they tend to do is they use this money to make mischief in this world. And they draw the society into deprivation and poverty. And an example of that, I can only, when I was trying to research about this, a particular example I thought about, not individuals, but a kingdom. And I thought of the Saudi kingdom, where they are so wealthy, right? And they claim to be Muslims, and they help the Muslims. This is what these people do. The wealthy people claim to help those deprived people, but in fact, they are committing mischief in this world. What does Imam Ali alayhi salam say? Al-Hadith of Imam Ali alayhi salam. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. للمؤمن ثلاث ساعات. He says, for the mu'min, for the believer, he has three time periods. Not sa'at in terms of hours, he has three time periods. فَسَاعَةٌ يُنَاجِي فِيهَا رَبَّهُ. There is the period when he is in communion with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Communication with Allah. So this is prayer, this is reading the Quran, this is dua. So Imam Ali alayhi salam. وَسَاعَةٌ يَرُمُّ مَعَاشَهُ. And he says, and the period where he manages for his livelihood. Right? You go out and work. You're managing your livelihood. You go for studying, you're in university. And then he says, وَسَاعَةٌ يُخَلِّي بَيْنَ نَفْسِهِ وَبَيْنَ لَذَّتِهَا فِيمَا يَحِلُّ وَيَجْمُلُ. And he says, and the period when he is free to enjoy what is lawful and present. So it's okay to go out. It's okay to go out with friends and enjoy it, but of course it has to be lawful. But he also says that it does not behove a wise person to be away from his house for three matters. Namely, for purposes of earning, or going for something for the next life, or for enjoying what is not prohibited. Okay? So these are the three sections of the time that Imam Ali alayhi salam says a mu'min should divide into. And that is Nahj al-Balagha, Hikmah, Wisdom 387. Okay, so now let's come to some practical tips. Okay? With all that in mind, in the verse and the hadiths that I have mentioned, I have this thing called the F list. Don't tell me what F stands for. F is just a letter. And you'll find out why I've called the F list. How much time in a typical week, and I want you to think about this while I'm talking here. Yeah? How much time in a typical week would you give to the following? Would you give to faith? Would you give to family? Would you give to friends? Would you give for the community? Right? Would you give for your finances? Would you give for your fitness? Would you give for your phone? I've decided to start with an F on that one. Or example, Facebook, right? Would you give for fun? Or would you give for future career developments? Or would you give for further learning? These are 10 things. Think about how much of your daily life you will divide these particular aspects. Faith, family, friends, for the community, finances, your phone, Facebook, etc. If you don't know, let's try to figure it out in the next few minutes, inshallah. The first thing I would like to emphasize is the issue of appreciating time. Now, you may say, what are you actually talking about? Let's do some mathematics, okay? In a lecture, I don't know how that works, but let's do some mathematics. What's 24? You have 24 hours in a day, and you have 7 days a week. 24 hours times 7, what is it? 168. So you have 168 hours per week, correct or not? Okay, for 7 days. How much time do you spend sleeping? You say maybe typical 8 hours a day, if you're lucky that is, and if you don't have kids. 8 hours a day, say 8 times 7 is what? Everyone asleep here? 8 times 7, 56. So you've got 168 hours and you sleep for 56 hours a week. You have work and university, studies, whatever you do. I'm going to give it 40 hours because that's 5 days a week, right? And I'm assuming on average, people work for 8 hours a day, right? I work 7.5 hours a day. I've given it, some people might work a bit more or less. Give it 40 hours a week. Some people might work 6 days a week. That's fine, but more or less. So if we do 168 hours a week, minus 56 sleeping, minus 40 is what? Is 72. So you are left with 72 hours to do everything else per week. And I'm giving, of course, the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, you don't work. Yeah? I'm assuming that's the case. But as I said, if it's different with you, you can perhaps subtract another 24 hours. That's still fine. So the gist of what I'm trying to say here is every single one of us, eventually, per week, 7 days, you have 72 hours of spare time. 72 hours of spare time. Now, the thing is that people will say, well, that's not really fair. You don't really know my timetable. I do this. That's fine. I invite you to go and divide your time like this. 168 hours per week, try to find out how much of that you have spare time. Use that spare time, hours, and appreciate the time that you are spending. And remember I said that typical day, you wake up in the morning, time flies. Time continues, as they say, time does fly. But what you've got to do is appreciate the time. So one very interesting thing is they say, is that you make a list of the things you waste your time on and replace them with something useful. So, let me help you here. I have a list of 5 things. First thing is, some people are busy. They want to be busy for the sake of being busy. Have you seen that? Certain people have time. They don't appreciate that they have time, but they just do want to be busy. So say, for example, they say that, okay, I want to watch some TV, or I might go out. When someone calls you and say, well, can you do this for us? No, I am busy. Because you're busy, you might want to go out. Or perhaps you're really busy. You have certain studies and things like that. But I'm talking about the 72 hours or plus or minus, right? You want to make yourself busy. That's why you don't appreciate the 72 hours, right? And time flies, as they say. Or spending a bit of more time sleeping. Number 2, so replace that with self-reflection and self-assessment. I can't emphasize this much, brothers and sisters. Muhasabat al-nafs. The hadith of Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam that says, لَيْسَ مِنَّا مَنْ لَمْ يُحَاسِبْ نَفْسَهُ فِي كُلَّ يَوْمٍ. You are not amongst us, Ahl al-Bayt, if you do not assess yourself every single day. What does that mean? That means I have to every single day at night, I have to come and write the good and bad things. It works sometimes, but sometimes you might forget. So I invite you to do it for every day, but then if you find it too much, do it every week. Sit down at the end of the week, like today, Sunday, before you go to sleep, have a list. No one can see that list. It's just your list. It's private list. You and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Write down the good things you've done and write down the bad things you've done and start to eliminate it and find out these precious times that are going. Number 2 is you sometimes compare yourself with others. We sometimes compare ourselves with others, right? Spend a long time just thinking about why is this person better than I am? I want to be like this person. And you spend much time on that. What we need to replace it is practicing gratitude for what we currently have. Thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for what you have. There are so many people out there who are much more disadvantaged than you are. Number 3 is caring what the others think about you. What you wear, what you buy, what you write on Facebook, what you write on WhatsApp. What if this person interpreted it in the same way or that I thought about? Doesn't matter what people think. Doesn't matter. And very importantly is your intentions must be pure. Replace it. Think well of people. Give people 70 excuses, as the hadith says. Number 4, excessive time watching TV. Now TV can be good and bad. It's like the internet, can be good and bad, right? Let's try to find out how many hours per week I spend watching TV. How many hours to spend what? Write that down. How many hours do you spend watching TV? And try to slowly eliminate the time. And what you can do, replace it with reading books. Books, Islamic and perhaps certain useful non-Islamic books. And emphasis, brothers and sisters, on reading books. Right? It is very important. We have left books completely. We've gone, our new book is the Facebook. Because it's called Facebook, right? So people have thought, oh yeah, book, I need to read book, I'll go to Facebook. No, that is the Facebook, right? It's fasad book, as some people say, right? No, you're going to need to go and read books. There are so many useful books out there. You can gain so much knowledge. And it's obligatory on you and me to try and gain knowledge. طَلَبُ الْعِلْمِ فَرِيضَةٌ عَلَى كُلِّ مُؤْمِنٍ وَمُؤْمِنَةٍ. Yes, you might gain some knowledge from these social media issues, but no, we've left all the books aside. Have a library. Have it like a small, buy one from IKEA, advertisement for IKEA. Buy one there and then stack your books in there. So it invites you that when you come in, pick up a book and start to read it. And number 5, and you might have predicted this, is excessive use of the phone, of smartphones. How much do we spend on smartphones? La ilaha illallah. How much we spend on smartphones. You always come and see people are online typing in WhatsApp and others, right? I don't have a campaign today to destroy people who use social media. I use it a lot, but it's a first reminder for me, honestly and sincerely, reminder for me not to spend too much time on phones, but replace it with spending some time. If you're a parent, spend some time with kids. Inshallah, in the forthcoming lectures, I will talk about parenting, and one of the tips is gotta spend time with your kids. Or if you're single, a relative or friend, to ask them, to find out about them. If someone is sick, call them. By the way, one very important thing. Why is it on Eid Day, right, we all forward messages? Why is it that on Eid Day, I get Eid Sa'id, Ja'alakallah, and press forward to all my contacts? That's not really, you're not really telling me Eid Sa'id. This is a forward you've been sending to all your broadcast list in your WhatsApp. Where has the phone gone? Pick up the phone. Salamu alaikum. As'alallah yamakum. Kul amantum bkhair. How is it going? Eid Sa'id for you. Eid Mubarak. It has to be only 1 or 2 minutes. Shut the phone. Right? It's important that we communicate. We're becoming like robots. Just forward, send forward, reply. Forward, reply. Number 2 is prioritization. List your priorities. Then plan your life based on these priorities. Do not ever say, and this is vital, that you are busy. Never let these particular words come out of your mouth. Let me tell you why. It's because you are never busy. It's just that whatever that thing is, you haven't prioritized it in your life. So don't say I have no time for X, Y, and Z. Say that I don't have X, Y, and Z in my priority at the moment. If I was to call you and say, well, can you help with a particular project? And you say, oh, I'm busy. No. Don't say I don't have time. Say, truthfully, this is not in my priority list at the moment. Make a list of your priorities. What are your priorities in this life? And the way that I'm trying to look at it is I'm thinking that the best way to do this is split our time. 30% of my 72 hours a week, right? I should give it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. 30% for Allah. Contemplation, brothers. I don't just mean salah. I don't just mean reading the Quran, although these are very important things. I mean at-tadabbur, at-tafakkur, reflection. How many of us have sat down in front of the Qibla, spent half an hour just contemplating? Tadabbur fi khalq as-samawati wal-ard. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, those people who lie down, sit down and get up always are on reflection. They are thinking about the creation of Allah. Have you wondered, when you walk in the parks, you look at these amazing creatures of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. Tadabbur, think about the creation of Allah. And another 30% is family. Emphasis of family. قُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ وَأَهْلِيكُمْ نَارًا. Right? Importance of family, spending time. If you're a father and you're a mother, spend time with your kids. If you're a youth, right, make sure you spend time with your family. Right? If you're away at university, make sure you always call your parents, always keep in touch. It is vital, the issue of usra, family is vital Islamic principle we have. And we have to emphasize on family. We're not like others who, after age of 18, leave the house. No, we are always this contact with family. And very importantly, is working for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, this issue, did you know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Holy Quran says, الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. Amanu by itself, you can't really find much in the Quran. It usually comes with عَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. 50 times in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. Not just amanu. If someone comes here and just prays, Salah, Salli Allahu Akbar, and does the best, goes and reads the Quran, does the tasbih every time, that's not sufficient. It's not sufficient from you. That is not the real mu'min that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. No. He wants you to do amal salih, work for the community. We are in so much need of people, especially our youths, to work for the community. There are so many projects out there. We, especially at this time where there is high increased rise of Islamophobia, what can you do to help your religion in that? There's so much misconceptions about Islam. There's so much misconceptions about Shia Islam. So much misconceptions. You go and type Shia in Google, what would you find? Right? So therefore, try to, whatever, I'm not going to suggest things because you're better than I am in trying to figuring out what to do. But importantly, amanu wa amilu salihat. Just amanu, just doing work and things like that and praying, it's not enough. Amalu salih is very important. And finally, I like to talk about emotionally intelligent, right? You've got to be emotionally intelligent. Now you might think, what is that to do with balance of life, right? I'll tell you this, that if you feel that you are stressed in life, you are stressed because there's so much things going on in your life. There's so much, you're seeking money and you're working and university, studying, etc., right? You will feel stressed. And as we said at the start, stress is one of the signs that you haven't balanced your life properly. Because if you're stressed, there's no balance in your life. If you're not stressed, it means that you know your time. You've balanced your time very, very well and you planned it well. So the impact of emotional intelligence on your lifestyle. So what is emotional intelligence, you may ask? It's very important that we try to touch on work of Western scholars, right? It's very important. Our number one thing is seeking knowledge from our Islamic scholars. And by the way, let me just say that it is very important that we always go back to our Islamic scholars. I've said this before, they are people who have worked very, very hard to provide for us, right? Knowledge. So let's try to seek that knowledge from our Islamic scholars. But also, it's also very important to try to be in touch with the Western scholars in terms of the development in whatever stage, in psychology, in whatever it is. Emotional intelligence is the ability to identify and manage your own emotions and the emotions of others. It's extremely powerful. It is called the EQ. Everyone heard of IQ? People say, what is your IQ? Right? Your EQ, emotional intelligence, has to be much higher than your IQ. Much, much higher. Because if you master your own emotions and the emotions of people around you, then you will always be successful. Always be successful. So, the psychologists, they highlight there are three main skills of emotionally intelligent people. They have the ability to utilize emotions and apply them to tasks such as thinking and problem solving. They have this emotional awareness, which includes the ability to recognize your own emotions and the emotions of others, and the ability to manage emotions includes the ability to control your own emotions, as well as the ability to cheer up or calm down someone else. Recently, I did this myself, and I'm not saying I'm anyone. So if I can do it, I'm sure you can do it. There was someone was unhappy that I said something in one of my lectures. So he came to me, what is this? What's going on? Why do you say this? Etc. And So if I was to go and shout at that person back, I'm emotionally stupid, really, right? Because I'm doing exactly what he's telling me to do. But if you calm that particular person, if you calm them down, and you got to find the skill to calm them down, I saw that conversion. And I am still practicing. I fall in that particular area where, someone becomes quite anxious in front of you and things, and then you become anxious, etc. But if someone becomes angry, the first thing you must notice, that's not the real them. Okay? This is what we mentioned about you are not your mind, is because they think they're their mind and they're feeding their ego, right? You got to diminish that ego. And number two is you got to be emotionally intelligent. Try to calm them down. So, people with high EQ usually have, and there's one very famous person called Daniel Goldman, who is an American psychologist who developed the framework of 5 elements that define emotional intelligence. It's number 1, self-awareness. Number 2, self-regulation. Number 3, motivation. And number 4, empathy. You guys know what empathy means? When you're empathetic towards someone, right? It's the ability to identify with and understand the wants, needs, and viewpoints of people around you. Let me give you an example. If your wife or your husband or whatever, your partner, comes and says, oh, I've had, this is such a difficult day at work, and I've been stressed so much, and, I can't stand it anymore, and things like that. What is your response? You're going to say, oh, why do you work so much? I've told you, you just stress out too much, and you're affecting me now. I'm becoming angry now. Is that the right? Because you're not emotionally intelligent in your response. What you should say is, I understand what you're going through. And if I was at your same position, I'll probably be in the same emotional state as you are. So you've lowered her emotions or his emotions completely, and she's calmed down. Right? And again, we go back to this particular ego, right? Forgive me for keep on saying it, but it is important that we understand the ego. Now, ego has a lot of, is involved in a lot of things. And the fifth thing that Daniel Goleman says is social skills. It does affect your social skills. If you're emotionally intelligent, you can control your emotions and the emotions of people around you, then you can thrive in society. Now, so what we've highlighted today is we've highlighted 3 main things. 1 is appreciating time. Know that you have 72 hours per week to do the certain things that you want to do. Number 2 is you should appreciate time. And number 2 is prioritization, right? Where you prioritize your life, you prioritize your make a list of what you want to do and what you think is important in your life. And do that, please. If you go back home, right? I like to make these particular lectures a bit practical, right? I will be the first person to do that, inshallah. So when you try to go back, when you go back home, try to make a list of what is your priority in your life. Have certain things like, perhaps I want to watch this show. Certain people want to watch these particular shows. That's fine, right? But try to be conscious of how much time you are spending on these particular acts, right? Be conscious of that. Because if you are stressed, if you are depressed, if all these particular negative sufferings that we talked about, that means your life is actually imbalanced. And I'd like to end with a poem that I have taken from a sister called Sister Fatima, which says the following. It's the time again when my heart bleeds. It's the time again when my heart bleeds, remembering you, Ya Aba Abdullah. The sound of my hollow chest, with every beat I bear, remembering you, Ya Aba Abdullah. The tears that flow, with red that flow in the blessed eyes, remembering you, Ya Aba Abdullah. I was not worthy until my mother bore me with your love, remembering you, Ya Aba Abdullah. Forehead touching the sand where you were slain, remembering you, Ya Aba Abdullah. It's the 10 again. I can be with you again, remembering you, Ya Aba Abdullah. All I have is you, free in mourning you, remembering you, Ya Aba Abdullah. ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
حسين 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 حسين